How long would it take you to cover up if you were cold? 2 seconds? 5? It took humanity almost 1,000,000 years to have that idea. That's not an exaggeration, not a figure of speech. For nearly the entire time there have been people on this planet, nobody, and I mean nobody, had thought about putting anything on. And the strangest part is how we figured that out. Let me show you the scale of this, because a long time doesn't even come close. The oldest pyramid? About 4,500 years old. You probably thought that was ancient. That's basically yesterday. Long before a single pyramid existed, before writing, cities, the wheel, any of it, we were already here. For hundreds of thousands of years, naked, fully naked. No loincloth, no hide on our backs, absolutely nothing. And here's the detail that breaks your brain. Nobody cared. It wasn't shame. It wasn't suffering. Naked was normal. It was the default. The same way it feels weird to walk around with no clothes today, to them, the idea of putting clothes on would have seemed weird. So forget why did we take so long to get dressed. There's a question that comes before that one, and almost nobody asks it. Why were we naked in the first place? Every animal has fur, feathers, scales, something, except you. And that wasn't an accident. That was on purpose. And that's just the first layer of this. It gets a lot weirder. Stick with me to the end, because the piece that ties it all together is priceless. Come back with me to Africa, a very long time ago. Our ancestors weren't naked. They were covered in hair, head to toe. Then we left the forest and stepped out into the open sun of the savannah, all day, in the heat. And we started hunting in a kind of crazy way, by running, long distances, under a blazing sun. Great plan, except there's a problem. A hairy body, running in the heat, overheats. It's like running a marathon in a winter coat. You cook from the inside. Evolution's fix? Drop the hair. A bare body cools down way faster. And as a bonus, we picked up millions of sweat glands. We became one of the most efficient animals on the planet at cooling ourselves off. So, bare and sweaty isn't a factory defect. It was the design. We were literally built to be hairless. When? The estimates vary a lot, and I'd rather tell you that than fake some precision. But a lot of people point to around 1,000,000 years ago. Hold on to that number. It's half the joke. Because look at how absurd this is. We went bare around 1,000,000 years ago, and we put on clothes way later. In between, there's this enormous stretch of time where we were the only creature on Earth with no fur and no clothes. Actually naked. Why? Why didn't anyone just grab a hide and cover up? Most people guess wrong here. Oh, it was modesty. It was shame. Nope, none of that. As long as we stayed in Africa, naked was perfect. It was hot. A bare body was exactly what you wanted. Wearing a hide there would have been like throwing on a blanket in the middle of summer. Hot, pointless, nobody would want it. That's why nobody bothered. Not out of stupidity, out of not needing to. What changed wasn't our morals. It was the thermometer. Some groups started facing real cold, ice ages, biting nights, freezing regions, and suddenly the bare body went from advantage to problem. No fur, not enough fat, and one genuinely cold night kills you. Simple as that. And it's in that squeeze that someone, somewhere, does the most obvious and most revolutionary thing in history at the same time. Takes the hide off the animal they just hunted and throws it over their body. It wasn't fashion. It wasn't vanity. It was pure survival. The first machine humanity ever built to beat the environment instead of relying on its own body. Clothing was born as equipment, as a tool. And this is where the story flips upside down. Because I just told you why and when this happened, with total confidence. But hold on and think with me. How could anyone possibly know that? A hide thrown over someone's back tens of thousands of years ago. Where is it now? Here's the nightmare for the people who study this. The oldest clothing in the world doesn't exist, and it never will. Think about the material. Hide, leather, gut, fiber, organic stuff. Stuff that rots. Bury a leather jacket and come back in 1,000 years. There's nothing left. Now multiply that by 100. There's no fossil coat. The most obvious evidence, the clothing itself, vanished from history. Gone. So you've got a mystery that looks impossible. It's like figuring out the exact time of a crime with no body, no weapon, no witness, no camera, nothing left. And for a long time, that's exactly what it was, a hole. Scientists knew we got dressed at some point, but some point was a window hundreds of thousands of years wide. You could guess, you couldn't prove, until someone had a brilliant idea. If the clothing rotted away and left no trace, then maybe the trace isn't in the clothing. Maybe it's in something that lived in it, something small, something alive, something that is probably on someone close to you right now. Let me introduce the most unlikely hero of this investigation, the louse. Yeah, the louse, the one from school. And here comes the detail that changes everything. The detail I had no clue about until I fell down this rabbit hole. There's more than one kind of louse on the human body, and the difference between them cracks the whole mystery. There's the head louse, the one you know, lives in your hair, on your scalp, and there's another one, the body louse, almost identical, with one difference that's everything. The body louse doesn't live on your body. It lives in your clothes. That's where it lives, that's where it lays its eggs. It only comes down to the skin to feed, then races back into the fabric. See where this is going? A louse that lives in clothing can only exist if clothing exists. That's its home. No fabric, no folds, no seams to hide in, and the thing has nowhere to live. Translation: the body louse is impossible in a world without clothes. It needed us to get dressed in order to exist at all. Now follow the logic because it's beautiful. In the beginning, in a world of naked people, there was only the head louse. Then clothing showed up and created a brand new home, empty, warm, waiting for a tenant. Some of those lice moved in and, over time, became their own lineage, the body louse. The birth of that bug is the exact shadow of the birth of clothing. One doesn't exist without the other. So the louse became a clock, a living, disgusting clock that's been stuck to us this whole time, carrying in its own DNA the date of an invention we swore was lost forever. And that's when science pounced. If the body louse was born alongside clothing, you just have to find out when it split off genetically from the head louse. Find that, and you've dated clothing without needing a single thread of fabric. A researcher named David Reed at the Florida Museum of Natural History led exactly that work. His team sequenced the DNA of both lice and measured molecule by molecule how long ago they became two. It's basically a DNA parentage test, just aimed at a parasite to date a human habit. See the move? And the number that came out is the final punch. The body louse split from the head louse somewhere between 83,000 and 170,000 years ago. 170,000 years. That's roughly the age of clothing. Now put the two numbers together. We lost our fur around 1,000,000 years ago, and we didn't get dressed until around 170,000. Do the math on the gap in the middle. That's hundreds of thousands of years, almost 1,000,000 of naked people, no fur and no clothes, walking the world in the body they came with. The same species that now sends rockets to Mars spent most of its own history without discovering the coat. And the only reason we know the date is a little bug that plenty of parents are still picking out of their kids' hair today. Let that sink in. And here's the good part. This is just one of the obvious things we took forever to invent. There's a whole pile of them. If you're curious which one's next, people always drop some good ideas down in the comments. And there's one last twist, maybe the most important of all. Because that little hide on our backs didn't just keep one human warm on one cold night, it cracked open the entire planet. Look at the sequence. We got dressed around 170,000 years ago, still in Africa, and the big migrations out of Africa into the cold, into places that would freeze a bare body in hours, those came much later. Meaning, we invented the coat before we actually needed it. By the time we finally spread across the world, the tech was already in the backpack. Think about what that means. Without clothing, a human is a tropical animal, trapped in the heat of Africa. End of story. It's clothing that turns us into a species that can handle the frozen steppe, cross Europe in winter, reach places where the snow never melts. Every cold corner humanity ever called home. We only got there because, long before, someone had the idea to wear another animal's skin. After that, it was just refinement. Came the scrapers to treat the hide, and later on, around 50,000 years ago, the bone needle with an eye. The moment we stop just wrapping ourselves in a hide and start to sew. Tailored clothing, fitted, actually warm. But the original spark is that same one, a cold human, a hide in hand, and a decision that changed the fate of the entire species. Anyway, the most ordinary thing you put on today took almost 1,000,000 years and a parasite just to get a date on it. That's the past for you, full of these. So next time someone complains about lice, remember, that disgusting little bug is the only witness left from the first time humanity got dressed. It kept the secret for 170,000 years. The fire stays lit here every week. Just show up. See you next time.